From the highest of heights to the depths of the sea.
Alright, what's going on, guys? Chris here for the worship cohort with Laura Story, singer-songwriter, worship leader.
I'm not in the picture. Here we go.
There we go.
Is that better?
So figured we'd just do a little interview for you guys and let her tell you a little bit about herself. So just kind of give us some background on your worship leading history and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's not a long history of worship leading. I guess, well, right now I'm a worship leader at a church called Perimeter Church in Atlanta, Georgia. And I have been there for a little over 5 years. And my role there is worship leadership. It's training and equipping 3 different volunteer teams, as well as I do a lot of women's ministry. Our church is about 4,000 membership, and so we probably have, between our ensembles and our choirs, we probably have between 2 to 250 volunteers. So there's a lot of women that have a lot of issues. you know women and their issues. So there's a lot of women that I get to meet with over coffee and just talk to them about the Bible and about serving and just about worship. It's a good thing. But as far as how I ended up here, I, in college, joined a band that I played bass in a band, and then a group called Siler's Bald, and then I toured with a guy named Andrew Peterson after that, and then the Lord just started kind of giving me songs, and the more I started writing songs, the more people would ask me to come and lead at their church. So I feel like I kind of fell into it,
Awesome.
but it's a good place to be.
Well, cool. So yeah, I mean, when you do write, do you purposefully set out to write like a congregational song as opposed to like a performance song, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I should set aside more time to write than I actually do, but a lot of times I'll just end up writing in my car, and I do write a lot of worship songs. I think being a worship leader is my full-time vocation. I think that it lends itself to, as I'm planning a service, realizing what the needs are as far as songs go. Like if I'm looking for something and can't quite figure out a song that fits in that slot, sometimes I'll think that might be the Holy Spirit's prodding, for me to write something. But I've found that in writing worship songs, the more time I spend in the Word, specifically in the Psalms, looking back to history of literally the hymnal of God's people, the Israelites, it's a helpful way to begin to get the wheels turned in as far as worship songwriting.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So you play lots of shows and you lead lots of services.
Yeah.
How do you prepare yourself differently when it comes to your mentality and your spirit? Because I'm sure that you end up doing some of the same songs in both settings. So how do you differ your mindset?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question, because when I first started doing this, I'd travel places and they'd say, "Hey, we want you to sing some of your songs and then maybe do some worship." Do some worship, and, as opposed to my stuff that's I don't know, pagan songs or something. I don't know, but trying to find that balance between saying, everything that we do is lifting up our lives to the Lord. It's basically worship. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I'll have in my shows, like gigs or whatever, I'll always have some time that's corporate worship. Well, I usually do. But what I find is even like the shows, what makes them different is I'll talk a lot more, and it's a lot more testimony than it is just corporate worship. And the songs I've written, they're very storytelling ballads about what the Lord's doing in my life or what He was doing at a certain point in time. But I've been surprised at how it really does all come together so much. Like I'll sing a song that I'd written about a certain time in my life, and I'll find myself gravitating, ending that song with a worship song that we can all sing together. Yeah. And it wakes them up too. Oh, that's cool. It's good to, after they're asleep, after hearing about my life, it's like, wake up, let's sing this song. Yeah. So it's good.
Well, that's great. If you could just say one thing to a worship leader, young, old, worship leader, singer, songwriter, what would you say to them?
One thing, if I could say one, I would probably say serve where you are. serve where you are, be content where you are. Someone told me a long time ago when I was first figuring out what this is all about, the word minister actually means servant.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes serving at a local church, it's very easy, with the spotlight on you and the microphone. Sometimes it's tricky. Sometimes we think that we're there to be divas,
Mm-hmm.
but we're really there to be servants.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I think that what would it look like for Jesus to come and lead worship at my church? How would he act? Would he be demanding of the PowerPoint people? Would he take time to listen to someone's problems?
Yeah.
Or would he just want them to play the right chords?
Yeah.
I deal with that work with the volunteers. So I guess just seeing ourselves as servants and being content serving on a local level, not seeing the local church is the plan. It's not a stepping stone to some national career. We've been blessed, my husband and I, we have been blessed to have more of a national ministry than we ever expected. But our national ministry, it's simply a manifestation of how God is using us at our local church.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I go out and speak at worship conferences, I tell stories of what's going on at Perimeter. It's not that I've graduated now from working at a church. Now I go and do national things all over the globe. It's not that at all. It's hey, if it can be helpful for me to tell you what's going on at Perimeter, then I'd love to come here and I come out and serve places like here and experience stuff that I can take back to my local church. Just remembering that the local church is plan A, and a lot of churches will be, if it's a church that they'll be willing to share you with other people.
Yeah.
And even worship songs, we think that we have to get them out there or something. I have a friend who wrote, her name's Jenny Lee Riddle. She wrote Revelation Song.
Oh, wow.
And she is a stay-at-home mom. She's a housewife, and she was making spaghetti one day, and she's stirring up the noodles and starts singing this song about God's holiness, and now people are singing it all over the globe.
Yeah.
But she wasn't someone that tried to make it happen. She was just someone that was reflecting on God's holiness while she was making spaghetti one day. So
Wow.
just serve where you are, be content,
That's a great story.
being God's servant in the local church.
That is a great story. That's a great way to kind of wrap this up, because I know last month we talked about how we define our success in the local church and as leaders, and it's a tough thing to navigate sometimes.
Absolutely, it sure is.
You all should know that every other weekend she's back at her church leading worship there. So she's very much committed to that ministry.
And here, I come here and you're getting water for me. And then I'll go home next weekend and I'll be getting water for everybody. It's a good thing to keep you grounded too, just to remind us that we truly are all here to serve.
Absolutely. So we were blessed by her being here this weekend at Harvester Christian. And thank you so much for just taking a few minutes.
Thanks for having me.
For us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.